right. This evening I will be bringing in my guests, and we will be talking about this year's New York Comic Con, which was 2 weeks ago today, and I'm just starting to recover. So I'm just going to bring everybody in, and then they can take turns introducing themselves. Hey guys.
Hello.
Hey, Chad.
So who wants to go first introducing yourself?
Alphabetic order with Doug. How about that?
Oh, all right. Hi, guys. I'm Doug Bixler. I take care of the marketing and design for Schenectady County Public Library, and I help co-chair our Electric City Comic Con in Schenectady, New York. That's free to the public.
Nice. I'm Josh Howell, Fierce Lit. I write sci-fi, horror, fantasy books and comics, and had a small press booth at New York Comic Con.
And I'm Mike Spring. I write a comic book called Red, White, and Broke at Out of Time Comics. And I did not have a booth this year. I still have not braved that, but I did go as press and did a lot of interviews with a lot of the casts and creators of the TV shows and movies and stuff that were there this year.
And I think, kind of what I like about this group is we're there and we have similar and yet different experiences. And I know that Doug and Josh were at the show last year in its returning form, and Mike and I were not there. So this is our first time back in 2 years. So I'm interested to see how your guys' experiences were, and kind of, if we want to go in the same order, talking about, tell us about what days you were at the show, what your experience at the show was in general, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. I'll start it off then. So I went on Thursday for the pro day. I get my pass for working at the library, and pretty much I use it as a way to see what a national Comic-Con is doing, a large Comic-Con. See if anything's changed, things that we can bring to Schenectady, and pretty much allow for our community to be able to, our community here in Schenectady, a lot of them can't make it down to New York or a large con like that, or, either for travel or even financial. So my goal for our Comic-Con is to pretty much bring it to the masses that can't get to a big one, and especially if we can get one kid, teenager or a young adult even, that is into drawing and gets to talk to one of our local artists or authors, and kind of spark something for them. So I go looking for what's hip, what's going on. We used to go down and try and cherry pick artists and writers, and it just became so demoralizing because since we're a free con, we don't have a huge budget. We do the best we can with the money we're using, and after 20 times of talking to people and they're like, oh, I live in California, it's like, yeah, you're never going to come back out here for Schenectady. So I started just kind of taking notes, and I'll do my research in the off season of seeing who's closer by. But so this year, what I noticed was that, can you guys still hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. I lost sound in one earbud. So what I noticed this year was that the merchant floor grew, and there wasn't, at least this year, there wasn't 3 copies of every booth, because that was the one thing I noticed last year. Was it looked like people backed out, or companies backed out at the last minute, and they're just kind of filling up space. So like, some.
Oh, you muted yourself, or something happened. You're on mute.
Well, until we figure that out.
You're back.
Sorry.
Funko does take up, a large portion of the show floor.
Oh.
And they weren't there last year.
I couldn't get over this year with how you walk in the first area and all you just see is like that Funko house this year. And it's like, holy crap, that's insane.
This was the first, this year they were partnering with, I forget who it is. I talked to them, but unfortunately, the Loungefly, yeah. Unfortunately, the video really wasn't that good or anything usable, but I think this was the first time that they've had something that huge or elaborate.
Yeah. Yeah, that it was impressive walking in, but it was like, is that all there is? You know, when you walk in. But yeah, it was nice that a lot of the big companies started coming back. You can definitely tell though that in this post-pandemic world, you can tell there's companies that are deciding not to go back or not to put as much in person. So like when you get into like the Diamond Select booth with all the action figures, the statues, they're not selling them anymore. You know, instead it's like, oh, here's our, you know, they still have the beautiful glass displays along the wall of the stuff they're coming out with prices or the stuff that's already out, but they're pushing everybody to buy online. So you can tell that, you know, the merchants, they're the big box, I'll call them big box stores, like Diamond Select. They're pushing people, you know, like, hey, look at this, but if you want to buy it, you got to order it online. So, you know, I can understand because that's a lot of merchandise to try and move in and out of Javits. But yeah, you know, some of the retailers that I used to like in the past still haven't come back, and I don't think they ever will. You know, every year it was a thing where I would buy a new hat and I'd get some, you know, kitschy socks from superhero. They'd have a nice booth, and it's like, oh, I buy a nice fitted New Era cap, you know, with one of the newest character logos on it. And oh, look at, you know, you can pick out 2 pairs of socks from behind me. It's like, okay. So they're still not back, and I don't know if they'll be back. But as far as artist floor felt nice this year. Past years, it's been the aisles are too tight, and everybody's doing the penguin walk. At least this year on Thursday, I don't know how it was, you know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but Thursday was comfortable. It was still packed, but it was still comfortable to get around to talk to people.
It got worse.
It did get pretty packed up.
Did it?
No.
Yep. Uh-oh.
Yep. Well, we'll keep going.
Okay. But yeah, and I'm trying to think. This is the first year actually that I had some time to be able to attend some shows or, you know, announcements and all that. So like I went for the McFarlane Toys announcement panel, if you want to call it. And Todd was in there with some other people from McFarlane Toys. And that was neat. You know, they're showing stuff that's coming out this year. I really think there was a plant in the audience because they showed another Batman 1966 figure that they've already brought out, but with a different paint. And the guy's like, yeah, he's going crazy. I'm like, repainted it. I mean, anybody could repaint that. So, but you know, it was neat. They're trying to show stuff for the new Avatar movies coming out, and, you know, talking about what they're doing with multiverse for DC. So it was really interesting to be able to see some panels like that. I didn't have a lot of time to get into any other panels, especially being there for one day, but you can tell it's back. You know, they originally said you had to wear a mask when you got in there, and it kind of turned into 50-50, it seemed like, with people walking around with or without a mask. You know, but there were points I took my mask off. I'm just like, it's too stuffy in here. I'm just doing that. But then when I got down to Artist Alley and it started getting a little packed, it's like, no, put it back on. So, but definitely an improvement, I thought, over last year. It's coming back.
Yeah, the main floor for sure. They extended it this year. They had the finished extension of the Javits done last year, but they didn't use the full main floor last year. So there was an extended part of the floor. That was pretty cool. Last year there was a lot of open spaces. I know there was definitely some booth duplicates last year, but there was still, with Marvel not being there and some of the other big, experience booths not there. It was just it got congested at certain spots, but it was definitely more open space last year. Last year they also extended these indie the indie press area, which is where I am. They took out a whole aisle and extended the aisles in between to 30 feet instead of the normal 10 or 15 feet that they normally are. And they kept that this year. And I, as an indie press person, really appreciated that, because in previous years, with those aisles being so tight, people would just kind of walk around them. They would keep to the main aisles, and like there would literally be times in any day of the 4-day week that it would just feel like a ghost town in that area, because people were not sure what this area is and didn't know if they should go down the aisle for fear of buying something or getting roped in. With them taking out a row and keeping that wide aisle, and encouraged traffic no matter what, and traffic is always a good thing. So I really appreciated that. But I did notice the more they got to the extended part, the more tighter the aisles got. So it wasn't consistent spacing on the show floor. And there were duplicate booths again this year. A Tower of T-shirts had 2 units. A booth that I really like, the Misty Mountains booth. They usually have like those leather journals and stuff like that. They always have a booth on their far wall. And this year I was like, I'm going to go get me one of those and do some writing in it. And it was so small. And I'm like, what happened? And they had 5 booths this year. They had one gigantic booth more towards the news side, and then 4 little satellite booths around. And I can see the benefit for that, especially for filling the floor and making it look more full. I didn't really see too many duplicates, and I saw a lot of new experiences this year too. Some good, some bad. I think there was a lot of bad stuff or reactions around the Funko booth, being how to actually get in line and when you could get in the standby line. It was just very weird compared. It was a cool setup, but apparently it was very weird to get into. So I can understand that. But I had a great time, and there was definitely a turnout last year. You could feel the cap in attendance last year. And while I don't think it's to the 2019 level this year, it was still apparently more than 200,000 attendees, and you could feel the mass. So, yeah.
I kind of looked on the main floor. It's like they tried to. I looked down. I saw tape. It looks like they tried to tape off like lines for different popular booths,
Mm-hmm.
which meant you had to, cut through people, and then you get the "why are you cutting in front of me?" or.
Mm-hmm.
But sorry, I interrupted somebody.
No, that's fine. I was just going to add my 2 cents in. And just that I got to the show floor a little bit. I spent most of my time up in the interview rooms, and then I would go down to Artist Alley some, because I'm a big artwork collector. I think Thursday felt great. It felt like an old Thursday back in the early days of the con, because I've been going since 2009. Thursdays used to be like the walk around and like twirl through the aisles, because there was so much room. You could walk up to the celebrities, and maybe you'd wait for 5 minutes to talk to one of them. And this time Thursday felt a lot more like that again, which was nice. And then after that, it was like being packed in a sardine can again. It was great to be back, because it's been 3 years. I mean, 2 shows that were canceled, but 3 actual years since the last one I went to. So it felt great to go back again. A little disheartened by the continually rising prices of original artwork that are getting to the point now where, unless you're independently wealthy, collecting meaningful artwork has become almost impossible. I really had to do a lot of bargain hunting when I was trying to buy artwork, because there's just people's prices now have gotten to the point where it's just, it's not really feasible for people who operate on a budget, unless you want to go to the show and, spend 4 days there and come up with one piece, which is not how I tend to like to do it. So that was a little bit depressing. Or
the right people.
Yeah, well, right. But I understand the reasoning for it, but it still is pretty disheartening to see, especially if you've been collecting for a long time. And I compare to the old days, but it was great. I mean, I had a great time. It was a great show. I got a lot of good interviews in, and I had a blast.
I mean, I was kind of going all around, but I guess they opened up like you said, they opened up the back part, so you had multiple entrances. You had the back entrance into the floor, which led up to the escalators up to where the panels were being held, and that I think that probably helped with the flow. But I mean, I enjoyed overall. I enjoyed the layout of the floor. I mean, I thought the IDW booth was awesome because they had it was like a little park gazebo thing where they conducted the interviews, and they also. I don't think I got over to like the far side. Probably the most thing I noticed was that DC didn't have their setup like on the concourse area down at the far end. I mean, usually
I peeked down at one point. I'm like, usually like back before pandemic, it's like they had all the Justice League outfits and they had certain toys, and Jim Lee was down there, and I'm looking down. I'm like, nothing at all.
Yeah, well, last year either. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Well, I was like, I went down there like, oh, I know the PR guy. Maybe I can, weasel my way into some of their official interviews. And you get down there, it's like nothing. And true, DC and Warner Brothers are in like a state of chaos. So, but they basically, I mean, I guess they had panels, but other than that, they had nothing.
Right.
DC will never pass up an opportunity to remind people that Marvel is better than them at pretty much everything.
But Marvel Studios wasn't even that impressive, at least on Thursday.
But
they had Moon Knight and they had Miss Marvel costumes. That's it.
Right.
And then when I was walking up there on Thursday, there was some dude in a poorly fitted Spider-Man outfit doing horrible parkour flips on the thing. And I'm like, is this official or is this just a fan that got up there? I'm like, is this really Marvel Studios? Come on.
Well, I never found it, but there was a Loki wax statue that was going to Madame Tussauds eventually.
Oh, really?
I think they had something with Guardians of the Galaxy too.
Yeah, they had Loki and a Black Panther wax statue from Madame Tussauds. Those were pretty neat. And then there was a Guardians of the Galaxy kind of like, it's not a Funko, but like a box that you could get in to make it look like you were an action figure thing. The Marvel booth was kind of definitely a little underwhelming this year, but they were competing with the 3 or 4 One Piece booths. Goodness, there was like every 5 feet there was a giant One Piece display. Whether it was a blow up ship or like a towering one. I mean, it was cool. I have not watched one thing of One Piece. I know what it is, but this might have been One Piece Con for all I know. It was a lot of One Piece this year.
Or Crunchyroll.
Oh yeah. We notice, that's the one thing that we've noticed with like the Electric City Comic Con is, we even joke because Mike emceed our cosplay contest, and I said to Mike, I was like, "There's going to be a lot of anime kids that nobody knows these characters," and then we get down to New York, and I'm like, "Oh my god, these are all these characters these teens are dressing up as." I'm like, "What are they?"
I'm starting to recognize the shows now, even if I've never watched them. I've asked enough times to be like, that's My Hero Academia, and that is Chainsaw Man, and that's One Piece. And so I'm learning even if I haven't seen the shows yet. But yeah,
Yeah, but
To
even
be
like
fair,
those cool
Chainsaw Man's the
dragon
easy one to
there.
identify.
and it is a pretty easy one. Yeah, yeah.
He,
'Cause, you know, he's made
he's
a
the one with the
chainsaw.
big chainsaw, right?
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Several of them. Yeah.
Yeah, they were great.
Yeah,
I mean, it was beautiful booths. Like the Dragon Ball one was cool with the big green dragon with the balls around up in the sky. It's great, but it's like, man, this is turning into an anime con, and that's a different time of the year in New York City.
Did you guys happen to see the Marvel Snap? It's a new game, phone game. Excuse me, app game. They had a pretty cool setup. It was-
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually downloaded the game yesterday just not because of seeing it at New York Comic Con. I just saw an ad on the phone. I was like, oh, this looks cool. I'll give it a try. And then it was like, we need like 3 gigabytes of space on your phone to download this game so you can play it. And I was like, yeah, I'm good, thanks. Like,
It's a big game. Yeah.
I was like,
I
that's
got
a lot
early
of space
access
on
to
your
it.
phone. Yeah.
I interviewed the developers, and it was pretty cool. And they had one of the things, I guess, their main like attraction at their booth was you walk into like this like little cube, and they have like the immersive video going on around, and
Mm-hmm.
that seemed to be the thing this year. I mean, I know Amazon, the Peripheral did that, the 3D printing, and then you walked into a thing and you watched a big. I did again. I didn't understand what was going on, but it was kind of cool.
I did feel like there was less of the experiences that they've had over the past few years this year. I wasn't there last year, but I remember like back in 2018, 2019, they had like all those things like the Tick, you could go into his headquarters, and like Spider-Man, you could go into the thing and take a photo upside down. And they had like Outlander had like outside a thing you could go through. There's a lot of those like, I think The Expanse had one, like all these like sort of experiences where you go into like these recreations of the sets. So they had a lot of those over the past few years. And I felt like this year, there was a couple, but really not that many. And I thought that was really becoming kind of a cool thing they offered, and it seemed like they definitely toned that down.
This year was they didn't have them last year.
Right,
So this is the first year that they're really kind of back. I mean,
Right,
they had some of them, like they had the what did Amazon and Audible do last year? Was it Sandman 2?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
this year
outside.
the Sandman 3 was off. It was like a out of 5-minute walk off site.
Oh, okay. I was
Yeah,
wondering.
they did have that out there. Mhm.
It was awesome.
They had the little kids DC mobile wheels
Fat
thing.
wheels.
Yeah. Last year they had the Prodigy bridge that you could go take a picture like you were on the bridge of a Star Trek ship. This year they had a couple experiences, but they weren't as grand. Like there was there was a Xandar booth that you could you could bring something and give them just random thing, something out of your pocket, and they would give you something from Xandar, and then they would put your thing on display, like circa 2022 Earth, and then they would give you something from Xandar. Teen Wolf had a very small little walk-in forest thing that you could take a picture of. But yeah, they were definitely smaller and less noticeable unless you were like right there and you were questioning what it was. And that's, I mean, as a vendor, I love going there before it opens so we can kind of like scout those things out. Yeah. But yeah, there was less experiences for sure. But there was a couple things that I was kind of like groaning about this year, and it's more the culture and not necessarily New York Comic Con, but I did see a lot of NFT stuff going on at the con. And gosh, I thought that was dying out. I was kind of happy, but there's still plenty of NFT stuff for sale, and I don't really get that. My partner at the booth did notice that there was a lot more or there was a lot less free signatures down in Artist Alley. So if you had artwork of somebody or a book of somebody, they weren't. I mean, you used to be granted within reason. If I had somebody down there, and I had a few books that I really wanted signed, if I lined up and was willing to spend the time, and now they're charging for signatures down there, and there's usually a 1 to 2 cap limit. So that's something fairly new that I guess was more prominent this year than in previous years.
it's been a trend that I've seen increasing over the years at various conventions, and it seems like this was definitely the most widespread I'd seen it. You know, where it was almost every artist was charging. It used to be just sort of a few here and there, and then it's been just proliferating more and more. And now it's like, you know, you're getting almost no shot at getting a free signature anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of sad.
It is.
I mean, I get it. I would usually buy something at the table anyway, you know, just
Sure.
to support. But yeah,
But I go back to the same argument I've always made: is I already gave you my money when I bought your book, right? And you have a job because of me. And you know, for you to scribble, it doesn't cost you anything to scribble your name on my comic. I'm not big on autographs personally, so I don't care for me. But I don't agree with it as a principle. You know, if you can't figure out a way to make money, I get like artists can sell art and it makes more money, but I've seen a lot of writers who sell prints of the things that they've done. Like David Michelinie sells like prints of like the cover of Spider-Man 300 and Venom and stuff like that. It's great. Sell me a print for $20 and then sign it, right? And that's fine. That's a way to make your money. But for me to walk up to you with my comic and have you be like, I'm going to charge you to sign this thing that you already paid for, that, you know, because 1,000 people like you paid for that, I'm a celebrity now. So now I'm going to repay you by charging you money for me to scribble my name on your book. Yeah, I'm not okay with that. You know, now I'm not famous in any way, shape, or form, nor will I probably ever be, but I have personally vowed to never charge anybody for an autograph again. Nobody cares right now, so it doesn't matter. But I hope someday I become a famous writer just so I can be the one person to always give out autographs for free. Because I am philosophically opposed to charging people for an autograph in that type of situation.
It's just weird. Like I could see, I mean, some people were charging $30 to $50 downstairs for an autograph. And granted,
they're charges $50.
Yeah, there's definitely bigger names that were doing more, but I could see if it was like not just a signature, but a signature and a sketch or something like that. But just a signature, and it got to the point where I mean, again, I'm an author. I have books upstairs, and more than one person had bought a book this year and then said, how much for you to sign it as well? And I'm like, I just looked at them like, that is an odd question. And why do you think that that's the thing? And why do you think I would charge you more? You literally just bought the book from me. Of course I'm going to sign it.
I get that a lot.
And you know, again, like you said, I'm not huge like those people. If somebody ever bought my book and brought it to me, you know, unless they wanted me to write, like, come up with a poem on the spot. I don't imagine a world where I would want to charge them. It just doesn't make sense. Yeah. So, and I can kind of understand the limits on things, especially when you get long lines and stuff. Sure. But it was, some of the stuff I heard this year, I was like, that is a lot for bringing something where you clearly already had their book, which means you paid something at some point, and you know, it's not like you went to Midtown and stole a stack of Jim Lee comics hoping to get him signed or something, you know. I don't mind the people who are like, you know, first 5 autographs free, then I'll charge you, because you always get those people who are either bringing a short box of comics, which holds the line forever, or the dealers who are then going to flip them over. So I get, and you know, that type of thing is fine. But I think for just a fan to walk up with a comic for Joe Quesada to sign and have him tell me it's $50 to sign my comic book, one comic even, you know what I mean? Much less if I want 5 of them, you're talking a couple $100, you know, that's where I have a big problem with it. I understand trying to keep things reasonable, because you will just have people walk up with, you know, here's my entire collection of things that you've written or drawn, you know, but the concept of it just as a starting point, I definitely have a problem with that, but out of my hands.
I wondered if it's to try and get rid of the people that are coming in with the little post-it arrow notes slapped on all the covers, and they're just like chunk. So
you could definitely tell, like the people that have like the paint tape, you know, like sectioned off, and you can tell who's a pro and who's just a fan real quick by how they present. But Doug, you had mentioned the masks this year. You know, last year as a vendor, we went and we wore masks all 4 days. And granted, it was a different situation because you couldn't go to a grocery store or a restaurant in New York without showing your vaccination card and wearing a mask. This year, with New York not having those enforcements, I think everybody was just like, I'm not going to do it inside here. There were people going around consistently asking all 4 days, anybody that didn't have a mask on, if they'd like one. And for us at the booth, we had a level of separation that we were fine taking it off. If I walked out in the crowd, I usually put it on. We were fine. My wife did get COVID, and she's boosted and everything, and I felt bad for her. And it's, granted, she could have got that on the plane or at the grocery store or anywhere on the trip, not necessarily at the con. And that's the risk you take to going to a big city anyway. So, but I felt like people were like, if the city's not enforcing it, it's kind of, you roll the dice. And while COVID is in the back of your mind, it kind of reminded me of the old school days where, like, there's a good chance you'll come home with Comic-Con crud, and it's just what you may or may not. And if you're boosted and everything, the likelihood of you having to have, something really bad happen to you is slimmer. So I didn't have as much of a problem with it this year as I felt it was more necessary last year, I guess.
Yeah. Well, like you said, also is,
that was
a lot of us are double vaxxed and boosted, at least one boost. Mm-hmm. And last year at this time, I think it was only 2 shots, and that was it. That was just the main thing. There was no boosters yet. So nobody knew what the future is going to hold.
Right.
So
when I was doing interviews, I kind of left it up to the whoever I was talking to. I mean, if you look at watch some of my videos, like some of the creators have masks on, and if they didn't have a mask on, I'd ask them, is it okay if I take my mask off because it's better to understand me when I don't have my mask on? I think didn't they try to enforce it in the press rooms?
So in the press rooms, and for those people who aren't really familiar with the press rooms, they're upstairs, they're self-contained, and usually it would be about 30 journalists, and usually like the cast of a TV show, like One of Us Is Lying cast was there, the Mysterious Benedict Society cast was there, stuff like that. What I found was that Teen Titans cast, Doom Patrol cast, those types of things. They were pretty lax about it. None of the stars were wearing masks, with the exception of one star. One person I interviewed had a mask. Everybody else did not. And then most of the press rooms, about half the journalists kept them on. Half of us took them off just so you could be heard better, because you're trying to ask a question from 7 feet away sometimes. So maybe the only press room I was in was for Let the Right One In, the new Showtime show, which is phenomenal, by the way, and I highly recommend it.
Yes, I'm 2 episodes in. I love it.
And so we interviewed the cast of that, and that press room, they actually went around and handed out masks and asked everybody to wear masks in that press room. And that was the one press room where one of the actors was wearing a mask. So I don't know if it was her request per se, or if it was just the whole show, because maybe they're still filming and they didn't want anybody getting sick. I don't know. But other than that, it was pretty relaxed. None of the stars, and if we didn't, I got pictures of a bunch of them. I was standing right next to them, doing the selfie thing, and nobody said anything or said boo about me not wearing a mask if I wasn't at that point. So, but they were also a lot more self-contained. I mean, like, we weren't close enough to each other. There's a couple feet between each of us, but like, it wasn't like a mass of people. Like, whenever I left the press rooms to go to the con floor or Artist Alley, I definitely threw the mask on, because you're just walking through like a sea of people. And in these rooms, you're pretty much sitting in one spot, a couple feet between each of us. It was like, unless you were right next to somebody who had it, you felt pretty good that you were, you're at least far enough away from somebody. So it felt a little more safe up there. And I didn't get COVID, I guess. I guess my plan worked.
My booth mate and myself, we didn't get COVID, and I counted my lucky stars and realized that I hadn't got my 3rd booster. So I flew home on Monday and got it that afternoon. So,
it was Monday morning. I woke up and I had an alert on my phone, because New York has this thing. If you're running their app on your app on their phone, it's like a contact. I got a thing that said, on October 6th and 7th, you may have had a close contact. I was like, duh.
So that was
50,000
the con or the city?
No, that's the state. It's a New York State thing.
Okay. When I saw your post on that, I was like, the con did that? And my answer to that was no shit. There's a good chance.
Exactly. Yeah, I got an alert a few days later, and it said the same thing. It was like, you may have been exposed on October 8th and 9th, and I was like, I'm sure I passed within 100 people.
That's funny. I thought it was just an error that I got one, so I guess we all got one.
Yeah, no, I think we all did.
I'm still waiting to hear back from Reed Pop's contact tracing. So
yeah.
Right.
I will say, Reed Pop was definitely on their game this year. Last year, this is my 6th year coming back as a vendor. I've been coming since 2009 as well. And last year, I'm sure they were just. I'm sure there was a lot of pressure with everything going on, but like I had problems from day one. My booth wasn't right. I wasn't even. I came and showed up, and they're like, "You don't have a booth here." And I'm like, well, my bank account says different, and I didn't fly here for nothing. And then I had issues with the Freeman people getting the right stuff at the booth and everything. So last year was kind of a nightmare. This year, everything was great. They were on point. My only obstacles were with my own equipment, and so I was very impressed by everything that went down. I know they did some things differently that for bigger vendors was a problem. I was able to bring all of my thing on a 2-wheel cart from the front door. If you had more, they did this new thing where you could drive your car in the back, but it started later in the day. So usually on like a Tuesday and a Wednesday, vendors could line up in the front on whatever, what is that, 10th in front of Javits and just unload and bring it in that way. This year they said, nope, that's illegal. Can't do it. You have to drive in later in the day and come in the back. And they were just waiting for hours because it took forever to get through there. So I heard that was a nightmare. And then a lot of them were told they were not allowed to move out on Sunday and would have to wait until Monday. I don't know if that was held up, but that's what we were told earlier in the week. I was just counting my lucky stars that I could take everything out on my, hand dolly. So, and I'm going to keep it that way. If I'm ever too big for the hand dolly, I'm not coming. But other than that, I felt like the con ran really smooth. A lot of people that were there for the first time in a couple of years really liked the fact that they didn't have to go to Madison Square Garden for some of the stuff. Yes. But I think they still have a lot of potential for those stages and those other conference rooms. I feel like it's still underutilized, and they could work to improve that. If they're trying to compete with San Diego, there's a lot more room for improvement over there.
Yeah.
I didn't make it to any of the panels, but it looked like they, had a pretty good setup for those.
I actually made it to a couple
lineup
this
for
year.
The McFarland one wasn't bad. Up on the 4th floor. The biggest issue though was they had all those the stanchions set up with the curtains on them.
Mm-hmm. I crawled under a couple of those.
Yeah, and it was just the workers did the best they could trying to navigate people, but I'm here for the McFarland one. Which one do I go into? And I had one guy send me all the way to the left, which took me for 405 when it was in 401. And then because the stanchions were so long, those aisles, you turn around and start walking back. You're like, I'm just going to either climb over or climb under. But they're at an awkward height, so it's not an easy thing.
Not flexible enough to climb over.
I was going under one to get into the press room, and I clipped it, and it fell. And then it was like a scene from a movie where it just took as one falls, and it went down the entire row like dominoes. It must have gone about 60 feet down, about 10 sections of railing just went chung, 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 chung. And there was a line of people waiting to get into one of the panels too, and they were all watching me, and I was like, awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. I'll be here all week. It was beautiful.
Way to make your statement. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was great. I was like, well, maybe you guys shouldn't block off the room. They had the press rooms on one side and the press lounge on the other side, but then they had those, roped off stanchions in between them. And I'm like, so I got to walk 80 feet down and back to get across the hall. So I was like, I'm not doing that. So I should, I'm tall enough. I should have just gone over, but I tried to go under. My backpack took it out, and they just went one after the other. I was like,
oh man.
There was also some
you
massive.
weren't the only one that crawled under them.
No, I know.
there was some massive confusion about the panels as well, whether or not you needed to pre-register for all of them, or if it was just like there was definitely the Back to the Future one. They encouraged pre-registration, but then they weren't very clear. Is there still a standby line, or was it literally first come, first serve at the beginning of the week, and you're SOL if you showed up on the day of and wanted to see it? Most of the panels had standby lines that just wasn't very well advertised.
Right.
So that was something I think they can. I like the idea of registration, at least for better seats, but I think there should always be some type of standby line, and some type of reserved section for day of people, because you know, if some of the biggest things that you're pushing in terms of the panels are already booked up before the first day, that's not fun for anybody, you know.
Right.
They did have a screening last year. They screened Ghostbusters, which was huge for the con. I thought that was amazing that they pulled that off. This year they screened David Harbour's new Santa film, Violent Night, and I heard that went over well. And I think they also screened one of the episodes for Let the Right One In as well.
I think so.
I think they should do more of that. Those are cool.
The Violent Night was a bit of a snafu in certain ways. Chad can attest to this. I got a press invite to the Violent Night screening, and so I kept saying like yeah, I want to go see that. I think it was Friday night or whatever, but I never got an actual RSVP from it. I never got like a confirmation that my RSVP. Then I got an email that was like, hey, RSVP, and I'm like, great. And then I went to the email. It was like, click here to RSVP, and I'm like, I thought I already did that, so I RSVP'd a second time. Never got confirmation. Ended up not going. And then Saturday night, when I was in line for the Jamie Lee Curtis Halloween panel, I was talking to the girl next to me, and she was like, "Did you come to the Violent Night screening last night?" I'm like, "No, because I never knew if I was able to or not." And she's like, "Oh yeah, we just walked right in. It was dead. Like there's hardly anybody in there." And I was like, "Yeah, I wonder why, because nobody knew if they could go or not. You know, I didn't even know if it was open to just the general public, but like as far as press people, they didn't ever bother to let me know that I was able to go. So we skipped it and went somewhere else instead. So I was like, could have maybe handled that part better, but it
wasn't very well advertised. I saw a couple people running on Friday night, like, "Oh my God, we just heard that they're screening David Harbour's new films. We're gonna go see it." And I was like, "Oh wow, okay."
Yeah, I had plans to go see it, but I don't like to show up to a place where I don't think I'm gonna be able to get in. So I was just like, forget it.
Of course not. Yeah.
So Mike, I know you got a couple of photographs. How did that work out for you? Because I know there's a story there.
It worked out really well. So you know, I do my press interviews and I love doing them. I love talking to the people. I really have a great time, and I like to think I ask some pretty good questions. And you know, it's cool to meet some really great people. But I also am slightly obsessed with getting my picture with them, to the point where sometimes it gives me a little bit of agita, where I'm like, I got to plan the whole thing out. Like, how do I when's the right time to ask them? And like, you don't want to get in trouble with the PR people and stuff like that. And it's always funny because the PR people are always like, no pictures, this and that. And then you go up and ask the star, you know, like, can I get a picture with you real quick? And they're like, yeah, of course. Well, you know, and then everybody comes up and they're just like one after another. They're like, come on. But there's a few people that I really wanted to get, and of course my biggest one was on Sunday, so I had all weekend to worry about it, but it turned out great. But I did get pictures with the big one was Jensen Ackles from Supernatural and his wife Danielle Ackles. So I'm a huge Supernatural fan, and I'm also in love with her, so that was a double whammy. I got them together. I got a pic with Jamila Jamil from The Good Place, who plays Titania and She-Hulk. One with Kate Mulgrew, who is, of course, Captain Janeway on Star Trek Voyager. And and then the other really big one, actually probably my biggest one, was James McAvoy, who I'm a huge fan of. And we had a very short... He was there doing interviews for the new season of His Dark Materials, the HBO Max show. So we had a 7-minute roundtable with him. It was very tight, but I managed to get my picture real quick with him.
You also,
so it turned out
had some of the ones that you paid for with the celebrities.
I did pay for a couple photo ops. There are people I knew I wasn't gonna have interviews with. I'm not opposed to that once in a while for people I really like. I got Tom Sturridge, who plays Sandman in the new show, because I really loved the show, and I figured he's cheap now. May as well get him before he's too expensive. Yeah. I did a double Superman photo with Tom Welling and Tyler Hoechlin, who plays him on Superman Lois.
That's cool. The story I was looking for.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. The Superman pose story. Is that what you wanted to hear about?
Well, and the
Or
fact
what?
that you the printers.
Oh God, yeah, that was a whole big thing. Yeah, so I'll tell you the story real quick. I'll keep it brief. But yeah, so Tom Welling and Tyler Hecklin were together doing a photo op, and I always watch the people go ahead of me because I don't know if you guys have ever done the paid photo ops, but you usually get about 3 seconds with them. It is very much like a cattle call. So I always try to have some sort of quick, meaningful interaction, so I can actually say I met them rather than just I stood next to them. You know. But Tom and Tyler were great. I see them giving fist bumps to a couple people ahead of me, so I walked in and I was like, "Yeah, fist bump, fist bump." You know. And I was like, "Can we do a Superman pose?" So all three of us are doing the Superman pose. They were really nice. But then the printers were broken for the pictures, for the photos, and
Oh no.
yeah, because usually you get your picture taken and then you go and you get the 8x10 printed out, and then I pay extra, which galls me to no end because I feel like the free thing should be the digital print, and then if I want to pay extra for the print, but they charge you extra for the digital. But I always do it because like taking a picture of the 8x10 to post on social doesn't look very good, so I'm like, fine, I'll just give you the $10. You can rip me off. Well, the printers are broken, so then they're like, well, we'll email you guys, when it's fixed or whatever. But meanwhile, so I, usually you get your digital copy in like 10 minutes. So, I leave the con. It's like 2 hours later. They haven't contacted us. I just didn't get my digital copy yet, which is, like that's the thing I'm most concerned about. And so I was getting a little salty about it because I was like, it wasn't until the next morning they finally emailed us and was like, yeah, we got it all fixed. Come by. But I'm sitting there going like, good customer service. Now, let me say this. Epic Photo Ops, who runs their photo ops, I thought actually did a really good job overall throughout the weekend. Their people were really friendly and helpful. But meanwhile, when you have a major snafu where thousands of people aren't getting their pictures, maybe send out an email, just like a general one saying, hey, we know there was a problem. We're working on it. We'll keep you posted. Don't make me wait till the next morning before you say anything to me at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if it was them or who, but having Michael J. Fox, Sebastian Stan, and Ralph Macchio all having photo ops at the exact same time on Friday. Not a good idea.
Wow.
You couldn't even move in there. It was jam packed. So maybe they could have planned a little better. But other than that, it was. I did do the Michael J. Fox photo op also because I figured can't pass that up.
Tom Welling and John Glover. I wish I could have met them that weekend. Those are the two photo ops I would have gone to.
Yeah.
Tom and John Glover and Brendan Fraser, of course.
Right. Now, what they've done if you couldn't come back the next day for the photo, just mail it.
They were going to mail them to you.
Oh, okay.
They were going to mail them to you. Yeah.
At your expense.
Yeah.
No, I think they said. I mean, I think they said that they would cover it. I think they kind of felt like they had to. Which, at that point because it's their
8x10 photo, but we're going to ship it in a 20x16 flat. And give us your
priority mail.
We're going to charge you overnight.
Right, exactly. $47 charge for shipping.
That snafu aside, I did hear praise about the autographs and the photo ops this year compared to last year because I heard my booth mate went to see whoever plays Anakin Skywalker, Hayden Christensen, and he paid for a photo op signature at a certain time. Got down there an hour before that certain time. 4 hours later was still not, and he had to leave. And it That's was brutal. They basically just said we don't have enough people to manage this. They're not managing the interactions enough, and we just can't get you through. So he got a refund. But I heard this year it was a lot more organized and got through. Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest. The longest I waited, I think, was for the two Superman, and that's usually because they had to finish their single photo lines before they could put them together. But I waited longer to pick up my photo from Michael J. Fox than I did to actually get through his line. And same with Sandman, I went right through that. They were pretty on time, and they had it where it was like 15 minutes before your photo op time, you could start lining up, which made it nice to know. Because in previous years, you were kind of like. You would sort of hover around until they just were all of a sudden were like, now you can line up. And then everyone would like rush to the line, But this year it was pretty clearly like they had the sign up and it was like photo op at 1 o'clock, lineup starts at 12:45. And so you could just basically get there at 12:45 and they would call your group number and they had them in smaller groups. So you could get right in. It ran pretty smoothly overall. And then a few of the celebs had where you could just kind of come up to their booth in the autograph line. So actually, I will say one of my favorite encounters of the weekend, I spent about 5 minutes talking with Rachel Lee Cook. Of course,
Oh.
90s, teen movie icon. And she was lovely and friendly and amazing and beautiful and hasn't aged a day. And I may have fallen in love with her a little bit. So that was really nice. I really enjoyed her.
I did love how people didn't notice that Brendan Fraser sold out really fast for his photo ops, but you could, for cheaper, take a picture with the entire Doom Patrol cast that included Brendan Fraser that was still available well into the weekend. And I'm like,
right.
guys just not notice it? Like, just go do the whole Doom Patrol cast. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
I can't leave my booth for those things, but
no, of course not.
For the people that did, I was like, that's cool that it went better this year.
I guess my two celebrity stories are: I was at the Scout Comics booth, and the guy who plays the bad guy in the Karate Kid and I guess Cobra Kai. I guess he has a comic coming out, and he was there. I really didn't stop and say hi, but I did get pushed into Dan DiDio and Artist Alley.
Nice. Yeah, they did have a couple celebrities on the main floor. Like him was there. Some of the Power Rangers were at a couple booths, if you know where to look. I did notice that they did a better job this year with lines. With Funko coming back again, I heard the nightmare of trying to get into that. But in previous years, that line used to just cut into everything for like a couple blocks. And if you were a vendor along that way, you were just SOL until that line went down. And I did notice, even with just random lines, they made a point to say this is the end of the line, and they made a point to kind of move the lines in a certain way that it wouldn't block other booths, and that goes a long way for smaller vendors, and we appreciated that, because we used to be right there on the corner, and we're so happy to get a corner booth, but then we're just overwhelmed by this massive Funko line that no one's going to step out of to look at your book, and so it's like, okay, we'll just wait until this ridiculous line moves along, and they did a better job working with those.
I used to be a pretty big Funko collector. I still have a good number of them, but not too many. But I used to have a lot more. But and I don't honestly have a solution to the problem. But Funko has taken all the fun out of them having a booth at New York Comic Con. Like, I remember a few years back where it was pretty crazy crowded, but you could get in and around and buy stuff. And then I think it was 2018. That was when they started the lottery, and I managed to get a spot in the line, and I spent way too much money on them. But then the next year you couldn't do it if you were pressed. You can't enter the lotteries to win any of the like spaces for anything, which is like, because we're not fans also, apparently. But it's like,
you're working.
It's I know, but it's like the whole thing now where it's like you just have to like hope to win a chance to give them your money. I find really galling a little bit. Like, I get it that they're so popular that they have to have some way of controlling it, but it's just like, I know plenty of people who are diehard Funko people who have spent like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on Funkos, and it's like they tried to get in and it was like, nope, you didn't win a lottery spot, and it's like, guess what, you're not getting any then. Like, it's simple as that. Like, there's no, and the standby line is garbage because you can't even get close to it. Like, it's just, again, I don't have the solution to it. I don't know what the fix for it is, but it sort of took all the fun out of it. And it was like that last year when I did get in and I bought all those Funko Pops, that experience sort of was like, when the next year when I couldn't get in or whatever, it was kind of like, that's when I sort of started to lose my Jones for them, because I was like, they're getting so exclusive now that like I can't just go buy Funko Pops anymore, like, oh well, then never mind,
So there was a lottery this year, because was it just a Funko lottery, or was there a New York Comic Con lottery
this year? I can't do them anymore, so I don't know. The way it worked the last time I was able to do them was different, like attraction type things where there was going to be a big line. You could try to win a spot in the line, like Funko. There was some like private autograph signings you could try to win and stuff like that. And some of the bigger booths that had really big lines, and you would just like sort of, when they opened up the lottery, you would basically click the button and it would say like, yeah, you've won a spot, or no, you didn't win a spot. I assume that's how they were doing it again this year, but I honestly could be wrong about that. I stopped checking because I can't do it as press, so why bother, but that's how it was back in 2019.
Yeah, I assumed they had stopped that, because I'm a part of like 3 New York Comic Con Facebook groups. It's a good way to advertise and just say, hey,
Sure.
if you're in this area. And that year, 2019, every single post was a bitching post about how they weren't one of 200,000 people that were trying to get a lotto thing and didn't get it.
Yep.
And I mean, it literally got to the point where I didn't get any of the lottos I signed up for, so I'm not going.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh, did you really? It's called a lottery. Do you not understand the likelihood? It's called a lottery for a reason. So I didn't see any of those posts this year. So either people were just like immune to it this year, or they didn't do it. But yeah, the Funko booth thing. They sell so much though. Like every morning we would get there 2 hours before the show floor opened. So we'd set up the booth and then go walk around until our feet were tired.
Yep.
And every morning Funko had pallets upon pallets of boxes that they were unloading for each day. And maybe the answer is, if that space is getting too crazy and lines just don't work, maybe they take over that DC pavilion. Because there's nothing happening down there. That's so much open space. You could do lines for days down there and nobody would care.
Yeah. And then they have it in that house thing now, so you can't even see the stuff that's in there.
Right.
If you don't get to go in the line. So it really just takes even just takes the fun out of it. But I agree. I think that's a good idea, Josh, is to go down in that DC space and just have it be ginormous, or figure something out.
So how many exclusives did they have for Comic-Con at Funko's?
I mean,
no. I couldn't even get
they're
in.
Most of them are shared exclusives with other places, but I remember it would get it back in 2019. It was like 30 or 40 easy.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's I've never been into Funko. So, the Funko Pops, I here I'm at my wife's desk and she loves Hamilton. Yeah. Of course I had to buy the Hamilton ones for her, but
my latest one is John Lennon. I still buy a few. It's something I'm really a huge fan of.
And it's like, when you walk around the merchant floor, it's like everybody's selling walls and walls of Funko Pops. And I'm like,
because you can.
I'm like, why is everybody lined up over here unless it's a super exclusive that they don't have over here? But if you're looking for that unicorn that maybe is like 5 years old, I'm going to be going to the the smaller places that might have it.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
from what I saw,
a lot of exclusives. Sorry, Josh,
we couldn't. No, you're fine. We couldn't go inside the whole thing, but from what I was excited because Funko has bought Mondo, and so I was hoping there would be a big
really.
I was hoping they'd have some of the more rare Mondo vinyls or something like that. Because if you ever try to buy a vinyl from Mondo's site on the day of release, it's like 30 seconds and it's gone. And so I did peek my head in, and I'm like, hey, I'm a vendor. I can't really get in, but can I just ask, are you selling any Mondo vinyls? And they're like, yeah, we've got these 4, and they were like the most basic. They've been around for a decade and nothing exciting, and I was disappointed, and so we didn't even try to get in there. And then
he went back to small press and cried.
I did. Then you always got to ask yourself, is it really exclusive? Because I've seen San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Funkos on GameStop's site the same week as Comic-Con, and you're like, well, then why is it exclusive? And
most of them are shared exclusives, is what they do.
Okay.
So you can get them through the Comic-Con, except for a few. They have a couple that are really limited. Those are the most expensive ones, and I flipped a couple of those a couple years later. But a lot of them are shared exclusives, so they have it like at New York Comic-Con, but you can also get it through GameStop. These 2 through GameStop, and then these 2 through Toy Tokyo, and these 2 through Entertainment Earth. And the problem is, of course, they sell out so fast online, and they drop them while you're at the con. So like if you're trying to get it online while you're at the con, and you can't get online in time, then they can sell out from there too. And it's funny with those because
you can't get internet in the Javits.
Right. Yeah. Certain ones sell out like instantly and are impossible to find, and certain ones you can buy like 6 months later. You can still go to like GameStop and find them. It's a weird mix of, I don't know, like if they're making different production numbers based on the size of the company they're sharing the exclusive with or what, but certain ones are like gone in 5 seconds. You'll never see it again. And other ones, it's like, yep, I can buy this until I die. It's weird.
2 other vendor complaints that I heard a lot. Well, I guess one is an attendee complaint and one was a vendor complaint. Regarding the internet, there were certain dead zones in the Javits that were known dead zones, and they still put booths there and sold those booths internet.
Oh,
C2 Comics.
Yeah, that was and there was a couple other sellers of like those enamel pins, and we went one was by the whole one piece setup, and we're like, hey, this booth is great. They're like, oh, we're glad you think so, because half of yesterday we couldn't sell anything because all of our POS systems were down because we couldn't have any internet. And we talked to the Javits, and they're like, yeah, we know this is a bad section for internet. And it's like, if you knew,
yeah,
Right.
then what? So I could understand their frustration. God, that would be so irritating for me.
Yeah.
The other one was it was more of an attendee complaint, but there was one corner of the con where it was just kind of a bunch of everything. And I know they can only plan so far ahead with the zoning and where you put certain things, but it was a kids booth with like cute little kid stuff, and then another one that was like cute little stuffed animals, and then another one that was those 3D reflector prints that if you walk by them, they changed, and it was just a tower of female prints, and if you walked by them, they were nude, and right next to two children little stuffed animal things, and they ended up having to put like a blocker on there and have them put post-it notes up. But the people were like, "How,
Daddy,
why
can we
would
go
they
to
do
the
that?"
block to that booth again?
Yeah,
That's funny.
yeah. And I was like, okay, that is kind of, why would you put those two next to each other? But you know, I can only there's so many booths.
Is that over
I can
by
only imagine.
eBay? Because I never made it over to that area.
No, it wasn't. It was on the back wall
By
it was by the guy that always sells the DVDs of shows that haven't been released on DVD, and somehow they let him into con every year. I don't know how that's not. He's like a stone's throw away from Marvel, and they could just come and obliterate him with all of the Disney Plus stuff he has. But no, he's there every year on Blu-ray, Daredevil, and whatever, you know. Yeah.
Chad's like, I didn't make it to that booth, but then right off the camera is all these lenticular prints of naked women all around it.
Yes.
We just can't see.
Bought them all.
If the camera zoomed out on Chad right now, there would
Right.
just be like endless prints of the change pictures when you when you pass by.
That's where I come to reflect on things.
Yes.
It's got little foam blocks behind the middle of one of them, so it just turned it right, so you can see the one that he wants.
Yeah,
Why do you think I blurred my screen?
I just really bad internet.
Yeah. Otherwise, though, we had a blast at our booth. We missed the C4 guys not being there because last year we just drank C4 every day, and there wasn't any C4 guys. But otherwise, we did well. There was plenty of returning customers and new customers, and people that hadn't been there last year because they were unsure, but they came this year, and we were very happy. We didn't really have any major issues to write home about. So it's a good show for us.
Well, that was kind of going to be my question to kind of wrap things up here, because we've been going for an hour. So, I mean, what was the highlight of the con for you? What you're looking forward to maybe next year?
Well,
I'll start. The highlight of the con for me was some returning customers that haven't been there in a couple years, and they remembered my booth, and I was a little underwhelmed that I hadn't, or I was a little sad that I hadn't brought any new books out, but they were like, "Oh, we're so happy you came back, and please come back next year for new stuff," and that kind of re-engagement motivation. But it was fun seeing more people out, and they were clearly having a good time, and that kind of their positive energy came over to me. And then other than that, it was just how smooth Reed Pop really ran it this year. Another thing they did was on the second day, they emailed all the vendors and said, hey, if you want to sign up for next year, here's your link to do so. And in previous years, that's been a nightmare of like from the moment New York Comic Con is done through February, just trying to get a hold of your agent and saying, is the time open? Can I register yet? Can I apply? And they literally on Friday, here's the email, here's the application. You could do it right now if you want to. And I thought that was just so smooth and so well done. And yeah, I was really impressed with Reed Pop this year, and I thought they put on a good show.
Mike, you want to go?
Yeah, I'll tell the story real quickly, as long as you don't gloat, Chad. So the highlight for me, there was an after party that press members got invited to from one of the comic companies, AWA Upshot, and I'm notoriously after a long day at the con, I generally want to eat something and go back to my hotel room. But Chad likes the after parties, and so he was like, "Are you coming to the party?" I'm like, "It's already halfway through." I'm like, I don't know. And I was like, but I told him I'd go. But I was
You are
like,
my
I don't know.
plus
He's like,
one.
yeah, he sends me a picture of him with Ethan Sachs and one of the other creators. I'm like, I don't know. And then he's like, I'll introduce you to Mark Russell, who's one of my favorite writers. So I was like, all right, fine, I'll go. So I grabbed my other buddy Russ, the three of us were rooming together, and we go down there and we get there, and Frank Cho is there, who's one of my favorite artists in the world. But I've always found him to be a little prickly. And I've never successfully been able to get a sketch out of him ever. And so I got the PR girl who was there was really excited to have us there as press. Not a lot of press came to this party, so she was all like, whatever we can do and this and that. And so she introduced me to Frank, who seemed completely uninterested in talking to me in any way, shape, or form. But long story short, I asked him if I could get a sketch from him, and he actually did me a really nice head sketch of Scarlet Witch. And,
oh wow!
After you asked for something else.
Well, yeah, hang on, I got it right here. So he well, so first I said, if I can find you on the show floor, now that we've chatted, would you do me a sketch? And he goes, no, I'm not doing that, in typical Frank Cho fashion. And I was like, of course not. But then he's like, but I'll do you one now. And I was like, okay. So then I had to go on a mad search to find a pencil, which I didn't find. So finally we agreed on a ballpoint pen. And he goes, who do you want? And I was like, Mary Jane. And he's like, meh. And I'm like, Black Cat. He's like, meh. He goes, how about Scarlet Witch? I'm like, dude, whatever. But like, why are you going to ask me who you want me to draw if you just can't draw whoever you want to draw anyway? Like, don't ask me who I want. Just draw something. It took like half an hour for me to get around to it, and I thought for sure it was never going to happen, but it finally did. And so this is the
there you go.
Sketch that I got. So, which is probably would have cost me about $600 if I paid him for it, and he gave it to me for free, which was very nice. But at no point was it warm and fuzzy. But I will take it, and I never have to bother him again as long as I live. So that was definitely a highlight for me. And so I told Chad I do owe him one, because if it was up to me, I would have been just go back to the hotel room, not going to the party. So, but then we
had to suffer for it.
Yeah, exactly. I hung out with Mark Russell, had a great conversation with him. I got my Frank Cho sketch. I was like, all right, that was a good night. I can't complain.
Nice. That's cool.
Your Frank Cho sounds like when you ask your wife, what do you want for dinner? And she's like, you start giving ideas. No. Right, what do you want?
Right, exactly. That's pretty much how it was. Like, I'm like, you can draw whatever you want, man. Like, I'm not going to argue with you, but like, then don't give me a choice then,
Yeah.
He's an interesting dude.
No. I gotta say, my highlight was the train ride down, because there were these three guys in front of me that just would not shut up, and it was so early in the morning.
They were talking a lot. I hear.
My God.
Yeah.
So a little background on it. We get on the train. I get on the train in Albany, and Chad had texted me the night before. He goes, "Hey, we got to figure out where we're going to meet up down there." I get on the train, and all of a sudden, there's Chad. Yep. Oh, there's Mike. Oh, there's Russell.
Yeah. And we did not stop talking the entire way down. That is true.
And you made the choice to sit behind us.
I sat behind you. Yes, I did. And I just put my earbuds in, put my hood over my head, and just kind of dozed off a little bit. So,
nice.
No, it was a good con. It's nice to see things be getting back to normal, type vibe. So I like the magic. I always talk about the merchant floor, because that's the magical aspect, especially when they do the experiences. So it's nice to see it's starting to come back. But like I said before, when we first started talking tonight, I really wonder how far companies are going to bring it back in person, because of everything moving virtual, because of pandemic and cost savings and manpower, and so I hope that it keeps growing, and this was the first year I was able actually to go to what do you call it, presentation for the McFarlane toys, and
yeah.
it was neat. It was really nice, and it's nice to see that because throughout the years I've got old college friends that worked for McFarlane Toys back when they first started. One of my good friends is working for the Four Horsemen again,
cool.
who started off with McFarlane and branched off. So it was nice to see like, oh, that's the story. That's right. George told me about that story about Todd coming in and blah, blah, blah. And hearing about all the, the stories in the toy part of the business. But yeah, I hope everything keeps gradually building back up the way I think it is. So
yeah. With the Javits construction finally done, it really does feel like New York Comic Con has the potential to be a competitor with San Diego Comic Con instead of just an alternative. It's been the alternative for the better part of the past decade, but these past couple of years they've definitely stepped up their game, and now they're just on that precipice of like, it's all in one building and it's all here and we're growing, and I really feel like they're doing their job. They're crossing their I's, dotting their T's, and really honing in on the details. And it's a pretty darn good show. This was our 6th year, and I'm still very happy going to it as a fan and as a vendor. So, yeah.
I agree about they've got the space at Javits. They've got to keep going because I still remember one of the first years I went down. It was Mark Hamill was at some theater, 6 blocks down towards MSG, and it's like, why would anybody be walking all the way down here and then have to walk back? And
Yeah,
it's like, you've got the facilities, you just have to use it all wisely.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of the theater, real quick, real small story. We've gotten lucky now twice now. We got lucky in 2019. We got lucky this year. In 2019, we usually get there 2 days early before the con so we can set up and then have some time in New York. And my wife and I were like, what should we do? Should we catch a Broadway show that isn't $300 a ticket? Let's see what we can find. And we found $40 tickets to go see this Betrayal on Broadway. And it starred Loki, and it starred Charlie Cox, who's Daredevil, Tom Hiddleston as Loki, and they were on stage, and we got seats like right next to the stage. And we're like, holy shit, this is amazing.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
And this year we found ourselves in the same thing. We went to dinner one night and we're like, what show should we go watch? And we went to the TKTS stand to see what shows were available. And they had tickets for The Piano Lesson, which was still in previews. And that has Samuel Jackson in it. It's got David Washington in it. It's got Ray Fisher in it. It's got Tasty from Orange is the New Black. It was a hell of a cast. Yeah. And we got amazing seats. And they were normally going for $175 to $250, and we got them for like $45 because it was like 30 minutes before showtime. And so this is like, so we saw Nick Fury and Cyborg on stage, and this is like a thing now. So I think we want to roll the dice, and hopefully we'll see what we get next year. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
Very cool.
Well, for me, it's like probably like Mike and Josh, once you get there, you're just running all over the place. But for me, it was actually getting to see people that I've met, during the 2 years of lockdown and talk to virtually. I got to meet Josh for the first time in person. After he randomly agreed to come onto the show when we were from a post in one of the New York Comic-Con Facebook groups. I got to talk to, creators like David Pepos and Jim Zub, and let's see, I'm name dropping now, so
Mark Russell. You talked to him.
Yeah, well, the restraining orders,
You've all been lifted now.
Yeah, but no, I mean, for me, it's always kind of being on the floor, even though it's a little bit overwhelming for me as more of an introverted person. It's a time for me to. I mean, I talked to Jim. I over the couple years, I talked to Jimmy Palmiotti about a couple of his projects, saw him on the floor and said, and he remembered me. So we talked a little bit, and did an interview because he's part of the Zest World creators. But it's just talking, making the connections from virtual connections to real life, and trying to hopefully grow those connections in the future.
Definitely. While being surrounded by tens of thousands of people, you can still make personal connections. It's kind of
trying to make me sick.
That's true, but it's still pretty cool. I mean, I don't remember all the faces of my, and especially not the names of anybody that's bought my book, but somebody that can come up to me and be like, "Hey, I got this 2 years ago," and after talking a little bit, I can remember them, and that kind of stuff is just always like lightning to me. I love it so much. It's just it's an honor. I love it.
With most of the creators, like in Artist Alley, it's like, I don't know if you remember me, but we talked a year ago when you had this Kickstarter project coming out, and I think I only had one person. Well, I really, it's kind of hard because if you want to talk to some of the more famous people, they're kind of hesitant because they're either not at their table, or they have a long line to them. But I got to have a couple of nice quick interviews with like Ryan Brown of 8 Billion Genies. I mean, we have an experience going back to Baltimore Con of 2015, I believe, when we were at the Harvey Awards together at the same table. But always a good time.
Yeah.
So, in closing, where can people find you online and find your stuff, or what are you working on, or time to pimp your stuff?
I'll go first. fierceliterature.com is my website. If you search that on Facebook or on Twitter, I don't remember my handles, but that's you'll find it. It's out there. Like I said, I was disappointed that I didn't have a new book to bring this year, but I have 2 new books coming out next year, and I have the rest of this year off. I don't have any more cons after New York Comic Con, and I'm sitting down and finishing those. I have a slew of cons coming up in the spring, and the first one is in Grand Island, Nebraska, and that's actually there's a theater there that was built in the 1920s, and it's said to be haunted, and that is actually what my book is about. It's about that theater in that town.
Oh, wow.
And so that is the goal, to have that book ready to debut there at Grand. I think it's Grand Comic Fest now instead of Grand Comic Con, and that's a fun show, and it's in Grand Island, and I love it. And a lot of people were like, "I want that book," because I had a sign for it at New York and I didn't have it. But that's what I'm doing for the next couple months.
Very cool.
Nice.
Doug, go ahead.
No, Mike, go ahead first. And
all right. Well, you can find me at outoftimecomics.com, and all the socials. It's Out of Time Comics. I just published the Red, White, and Broke trade paperback, which is 120 pages. It's the 4-issue miniseries plus a bunch of bonus materials. And I am currently working on my next book called Uncaped, which will be kickstarting in January. So keep an eye out for that. And also, you can check out my film podcast, After the Ending, which is on all your major podcast platforms.
Cool. I don't make anything so other than all the posters and videos for a library, but everybody get your library cards. You can get graphic novels at your libraries. You can get, YA fiction, whatever. You can get it all there for free.
It comes to Electric City Comic Con.
What's that? Chad, did you say something?
He said, "Come to Electric City Comic Con."
Yes, we
come to Electric
we
City
already
Comic-Con.
have a date for next year. Let me just pull it up real quick. It will be. Why is it not showing up now? Of course, it's not showing up because I'm on the spot.
Right.
It's always the second
July
Saturday.
7th or
July
something.
8th, 2023, Schenectady, New York. We'll be.
I was close.
We'll be doing this will be our 7th Comic-Con.
Cool.
So we're hoping to keep growing ourselves and try to make it as encompassing as possible for everybody. But like I said, go check out your local library. If you don't have a library card, go get it. It's free. Why not?
Absolutely.
And then you can do your ebooks on Hoopla. I read my graphic novels on Hoopla for free. So it's great. We get like 5 a month, and I burn through them in one night while I'm trying to fall asleep, and the insomnia kicks in. So
there you go.
But no, thanks for having me, Chad. Thanks. It's great to see Mike again and Josh again.
Likewise.
So that's all I got.
Well, I want to thank everybody for taking the time out. It's always fun to get get you guys together and hear your experiences. I mean, I heard Mike's. I mean,
I'm tired of hearing mine. Why haven't they emailed me about my Superman photo op yet? Come on.
He hasn't got his picture
I'm sure
yet.
you were tired of that.
But I mean, you can find me on this humble little channel. But I also write for Comic Watch, and I'm trying to get into this whole TikTok thing. I'm working on self-promoting. I'm not very good at that.
Good luck. Yeah.
You'll get there, Chad. You'll get there. We'll help you. We'll help you.
Again, thank you guys for taking the time, and we'll see you next year, hopefully on the show floor or before then.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks, Chad. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Take care. Are you want me to drop off? Or are you cutting?
Okay.